They laughed. Not quietly, not politely. They laughed while he rejected her in front of everyone. Her mate, her fate, broken with a single sentence. She stood there, frozen, humiliated, feeling the bond tear apart inside her chest, like she was being erased in real time. And no one stopped it. No one defended her, because in their world, once you're rejected, you disappear. But then, everything changed. The air shifted, the laughter died, and the most powerful Alpha King stepped forward, not slowly, not carefully, decisively. His presence alone silenced the entire pack. His eyes locked onto her, not with pity, but with something far more dangerous. Recognition. The broken girl they had just discarded wasn't meant to be abandoned. She was meant to be claimed. And in the next second, he did something no one expected. He chose her, in front of everyone. The moment he chose her, the world didn't just go silent. It shifted, like something ancient had just been awakened. Illyra's breath caught in her throat, her body still trembling from the pain of the broken bond. Her chest ached, raw and hollow, as if something had been ripped out of her and left behind nothing but emptiness. And yet, that emptiness didn't last, because now something else was filling it, something stronger, something she didn't understand. Her eyes slowly lifted to him, the Alpha King. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence without even touching him. Tall, unshaken, his gaze locked onto her like the rest of the world no longer existed. The crowd didn't breathe, didn't move, because this wasn't normal. This wasn't allowed. "You've made your decision," the king said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. Illyra's former mate flinched, just slightly, but everyone saw it. "She was never meant to stand beside you," the king continued, each word cutting deeper than the last. A murmur spread through the crowd, low, uncertain, because no one had ever spoken to an alpha like that, not here, not like this. Her ex-mate's jaw tightened, his pride cracking under the weight of something he couldn't control anymore. "You don't know what you're talking about. She's weak. She couldn't even hold the bond." Enough. The word didn't come out loud, but it didn't need to. The air itself seemed to freeze. The king stepped forward. One step, and the ground felt heavier. 2 steps, and the tension snapped. He stopped beside Illyra, not in front, not behind, beside her, equal, intentional, protective. And for the first time since everything had fallen apart, Illyra didn't feel small. His gaze shifted slightly, finally acknowledging the one who had rejected her. "You broke what you didn't understand," the king said. A pause. Then, "You discarded what was never yours to begin with." The words landed like a backslash. The crowd reacted instantly. Shock, whispers, disbelief. Illyra's heart pounded violently, because this wasn't just defense. This was something else, something deeper, something that made her pulse race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Her ex-mate stepped forward again, anger rising fast now. "You think you can just take her?" he growled. The king didn't hesitate. "Yes." Silence. Complete. Crushing. And then, Illyra felt it. The heat. Sudden.
sharp. Her hand flew to her neck as a gasp escaped her lips. The mark. It was burning. Not like before, not painful. Alive, glowing faintly beneath her skin. The king noticed immediately. Of course he did. His eyes darkened, something primal flickering behind them. "Look at her," he said, his voice dropping lower. The crowd obeyed instinctively, and when they saw it, everything changed. The mark was real, visible, impossible, a connection that shouldn't exist. Her ex-mate froze, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief. "No, that's not—" "It is." The king's voice cut through him, final, unarguable. Illyra's breathing became uneven as the heat spread, her body reacting in ways she couldn't control. And before she could stop herself, she swayed, just slightly, but it was enough. The king's hand moved instantly, gripping her waist, pulling her back, into him. The contact sent a shock through her entire body. Her breath hitched, her fingers instinctively grasped onto him, and for a single moment, everything else disappeared. The crowd, the whispers, the past, gone. There was only him, his presence, his strength, the way her body responded to him like it had been waiting this entire time. "You feel it," he murmured near her ear. Her voice barely came out. "Yes." His grip tightened just slightly, not controlling, anchoring. "Good." He lifted his gaze again, back to the crowd, back to the world that had just watched her be broken and now watched her rise. She is not rejected. Each word deliberate, powerful, unavoidable. She is claimed. The silence that followed was no longer filled with laughter. It was filled with fear and something far more dangerous, respect. Because everyone there understood one thing now. The girl they had just humiliated no longer belonged to them. She belonged to him. And that changed everything.
The moment they crossed the border, everything
The silence
changed.
didn't last.
Elira felt it
shattered.
instantly. The air
"You're
was
lying."
different here.
The words came
Heavier,
out sharp, desperate.
charged with something
Her former
ancient,
mate stepped
something
forward,
powerful.
his eyes
It
locked on the
pressed
glowing mark
subtly
at
against her
Elira's
skin,
neck, as if
like an
denying
invisible
it would make it
force measuring
disappear.
her, testing
"That's
her.
not real," he
This
continued,
was his
voice
territory,
rising. She
the
couldn't
Alpha
even
King's
hold our
domain,
bond. There's
and
no
it was
way
nothing
she could
like the place she had
say
just
another
left
word.
behind.
The king
The
interrupted
trees
calmly.
stood taller,
"And you won't
darker.
finish it."
The silence
The threat
deeper.
wasn't loud,
Even
but
the
it was
wind
absolute.
seemed controlled.
The air tightened
She slowed
instantly.
slightly.
Elira felt it in her
reacting before
chest,
her
in her
thoughts
lungs,
could catch up.
in the way her body
"This
instinctively
place,"
leaned
she
closer to
whispered.
him, like it
The
knew
king
where
didn't
safety
look at
was
her,
now.
but he
Her
answered.
ex-mate hesitated.
It recognizes
just
strength.
for a second.
A
But
chill
that second
ran
was
down her
enough,
spine.
because everyone
"Then it's
saw
going
it.
to reject me,"
The doubt,
she said
the
quietly.
crack.
That
And once it
made
appeared,
him stop.
it couldn't be
Immediately.
undone.
He turned
"You're
to her,
making a mistake,"
fully this time.
he tried again,
and the
forcing
intensity
his
in
voice
his
steady.
gaze locked her
"You
in
don't
place.
know what she is."
No,
The
he
king
said,
didn't move,
firm,
didn't react,
certain.
but his
It
hand,
won't.
still at
Her
Elira's
breath
waist,
caught slightly.
tightened just
"You
slightly.
don't know that."
I know
do.
exactly
A
what she
pause.
is.
Then,
His gaze shifted
because
down to
it
her,
already
slower
hasn't.
this time,
the words
intentional.
settled deep.
And I know
Before she could
exactly
respond,
what she isn't.
movement echoed through the
Elira's
trees.
breath caught.
Not subtle.
Her heart was
not
still
hidden,
racing, but now
intentional.
it felt different.
They weren't
not
alone.
panic, not
Figures
fear.
began to emerge.
Something stronger,
one by one,
something
from
building.
the shadows.
She's
Wolves,
not weak,
strong,
the king continued.
disciplined,
The words were
watching.
simple, but they hit
Every
harder
single
than
pair of
anything
eyes
else.
locked onto
because
her
no one had
instantly,
ever said that about her
assessing,
before.
calculating,
Not like this.
judging.
Not with certainty.
Elira felt it like
Her
a
ex-mate
weight
let out
pressing
a
against
bitter
her
laugh,
chest.
shaking his
The
head.
whispers didn't
"You're
come
blinded,"
immediately,
he said.
but the tension
"This is
did.
just instinct.
Thick,
It'll fade."
sharp.
The king's expression didn't
dangerous.
change.
And then
It won't.
they stepped forward.
How can you be so sure?
3 of them, clearly
pause.
leaders.
Then,
1 male, 2
because I
females.
don't make temporary
The first
decisions.
woman's gaze swept over
Silence
Elira
fell again.
slowly,
But this
stopping
time,
at her neck.
it wasn't shock.
At the mark.
It was
Her
tension
expression
building,
didn't hide it.
ready to break.
Disapproval.
Elira could
The
feel
second
every
woman
pair
was
of
worse.
eyes on her,
Her eyes
judging,
flicked between
measuring,
Elira and the king,
waiting.
and something
The
darker
girl who had
settled
just
there.
been rejected
Not
was
confusion,
now standing
not
by
doubt,
the most powerful
jealousy,
alpha alive,
sharp,
and no one
immediate,
understood how.
uncontrolled.
Not even her.
Elira
The
felt
mark
it
pulsed
instantly.
again.
And
Warm,
for a moment,
alive.
old instincts
Her hand
tried to
slowly
surface
lifted
again,
to her neck,
shrink,
fingers
step
brushing
back,
over the glowing
disappear.
skin.
But
It
before
reacted
that feeling
instantly,
could take hold,
brighter,
the king
stronger.
moved,
The connection
just slightly,
surged.
but
Her
enough.
breath hitched.
His presence
and the king
shifted
felt
closer
it.
to hers.
Of course he did.
A silent message.
His head tilted slightly toward her, his
she
focus
wasn't
sharpening.
alone.
"Easy,"
the male
he
stepped
murmured,
forward
low
first,
enough that only she could
respectful,
hear.
but tense.
"I don't know how to
"My
control
king,"
it," she
he
whispered
said,
back.
bowing his
"You
head
don't
slightly.
need to."
His
Her
eyes
eyes
flicked
flicked up
to
to
Elira
his.
again.
Why not?
Brief.
A faint
measured.
shift in his expression.
"You've returned.
Not quite
unexpectedly.
a smile, but close.
I don't
Because
announce
I
my
will."
movements." The
The
king
words
replied
sent a
calmly.
shiver down her spine.
No, of course
not
not.
fear.
A
Something
pause.
else.
Then,
Something that made her
"And
pulse
she
quicken
is-"
in a way she
the
couldn't
question
explain.
hung in the air.
Behind them,
heavy,
her ex-mate snapped.
loaded.
"This isn't
Everyone
over,"
was waiting,
he growled.
watching.
The king didn't even look
Elira
at him.
felt her heartbeat
"It already
rise again.
is."
Because
"No,"
this,
he said,
this moment
stepping forward again.
defined
"You don't just
everything.
walk in here
Who
and
she
take
was
what's
here,
mine."
what she meant,
This time,
whether she
the
belonged
king turned,
or didn't.
slowly,
The
fully,
king didn't
and
hesitate.
the temperature dropped.
Not even for a
She
second.
is not
She
yours.
is mine.
The certainty in his voice
Silence.
crushed everything
Immediate.
else. You
Absolute.
lost that right the moment
words
you broke
didn't
the bond.
echo. They didn't
Her
need
ex-mate's
to.
fists
They
clenched.
settled.
"I can
Final.
challenge you." The
Unquestionable.
words hung in the air.
The first
heavy,
woman's jaw
dangerous.
tightened slightly.
The crowd
The second
reacted
one's
instantly.
didn't hide her reaction
Whispers
at
rising,
all.
tension
Her posture
snapping
stiffened.
tighter.
Her eyes
because
darkened.
that
and just
changed
like that,
everything.
Elira
A
understood.
challenge to the alpha
She
king
wasn't
wasn't just
being
reckless.
judged.
It
She
was
was being
suicidal.
challenged. without a
Elira's heart
single
pounded
word
harder.
spoken.
Her
The
gaze
male
shifted
nodded
quickly
slowly,
to the king.
absorbing
But he
the
didn't look
statement.
surprised.
Understood.
Didn't look concerned.
But it wasn't.
If anything,
not
he
fully.
looked bored.
Not for them.
"You
not
can,"
for anyone.
he said calmly.
Because nothing
A
about
pause.
this made sense.
Then,
and
"But
that
you
made
won't."
it dangerous.
"And why not?"
Elira
her
felt it
ex-mate
in the way the
snapped.
air shifted
The king
again,
stepped forward.
in the way the wolves
Just one
around
step,
them adjusted,
but it was enough.
in the way tension
Power
didn't
surged,
leave. It
pressing
grew.
down on everyone
She
in the clearing,
carries the mark,
crushing,
the first
dominating,
woman said,
unavoidable.
finally, her voice
because
controlled,
you already know
but
how that
edged.
ends.
The king's gaze
Silence.
flicked toward her,
Complete.
cold.
Her ex-mate's
Yes.
jaw tightened.
Another pause.
His body tensed.
Then,
but he
"It's
couldn't
new."
move. He
That
couldn't.
wasn't a question.
The difference
It was
between
an
them was
observation,
too clear now.
a test.
Too undeniable.
The king didn't answer
The king held
immediately,
his gaze for
but the
one
silence
final
itself
second,
became the
then
answer.
turned away,
The second
dismissing
woman
him
let
completely,
out a quiet breath,
like he was no
almost
longer
a
worth
laugh.
attention.
Convenient.
And somehow,
she murmured.
that hurt more
That
than
was
anything
enough.
else.
The king
Elira
turned
felt it,
his full
the
attention
shift,
to her,
the final
and the
break,
pressure hit
not just of the
instantly.
bond,
Sharp,
but of everything that came
dominant,
with it.
unforgiving.
Her past
Choose
was over.
your next words.
The king's
carefully,
hand moved
he
again,
said.
this
Soft,
time not just
but
holding,
lethal.
but guiding.
The woman straightened.
Come.
But didn't
The
look
word
away.
was quiet,
Brave
but it wasn't a command.
or reckless.
It felt like
She
an
said,
invitation,
"Forgive me,
a
my
choice.
king." Though there was
Elira
no
hesitated
real
for
apology
only
in her
one
tone.
moment.
It's
Just one.
unusual.
She moved,
Everything about
walking
this is
beside
unusual.
him,
The male
not
added
behind,
quickly,
not
trying
dragged,
to diffuse the
beside.
tension. But
And
it
as they
was
took
too
their
late.
first steps
The
away
damage
from the
was
crowd,
done.
the whispers
Elira
followed,
felt it clearly
louder
now.
now,
This
more
place,
intense.
This pack,
She's
wasn't
really
going
going
to
with
accept
him.
her easily.
That mark,
and
did
the
you see
moment
it?
they saw weakness,
He chose
they
her.
would tear
Why
into
her?
it.
The
But
king
Elira
seemed
didn't
to
look
sense
back,
her thoughts,
didn't stop,
because his voice
because
came
for
again,
the first time,
clear,
she didn't
final.
feel like she was being
For
left
those who are
behind.
confused,
She
he
felt
said,
like she was
his
finally
gaze
moving
sweeping
forward.
across all of them.
And the moment
Let
she
me make
crossed the
this
edge of the
simple.
clearing,
The
she
air
knew one
stilled.
thing.
Every wolf
This wasn't
focused.
just the end of
Every
something.
breath
It was
held.
the beginning of
She
something
is
far
not a
more
guest.
dangerous
A
and
pause.
far more
Then,
powerful than
she
anyone
is your
there was
queen.
ready for.
The impact was immediate. Shock exploded through the group. The first woman stepped back slightly. The second one's composure cracked completely. The male froze. And the rest? They reacted like a wave. Whispers, disbelief, tension rising fast. Because that changed everything. Elira's
The doors of the inner hall closed behind them, and the noise of the outside world disappeared instantly. Silence. Deep. Heavy. Controlled. Elira felt it press against her again, stronger this time. This place wasn't just powerful, it was personal. Everything here carried his presence, his authority, his control. And now, she was inside it, at the center of it. The king didn't stop walking immediately. He guided her forward, deeper into the hall, past towering pillars and dim golden lights that flickered like controlled fire along the walls. Every step echoed, measured, intentional, until finally, he stopped. Elira didn't realize how close she was to him until she nearly collided into his chest. Her breath caught. Again. It was happening too often now, too easily. "Careful," he murmured. Low, close. His hand steadied her instantly, fingers firm at her waist. The contact sent a quiet wave through her body, not overwhelming this time, but present, constant, aware. She pulled in a breath, trying to steady herself. "This place," she said softly, "it feels like it's watching me." "It is." Her eyes snapped to his. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about my territory." Of course he didn't. A small silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but charged, like something was building beneath the surface. Elira became suddenly aware of everything, how close he was, how his hand hadn't moved, how her body wasn't pulling away. "You shouldn't have called me that," she said finally. His gaze shifted slightly. "Called you what?" She hesitated. Then, "Queen." The word felt strange on her tongue, too heavy, too unreal, too dangerous. His expression didn't change. "Why not?" "Because it's not true." The answer came quickly, instinctively, like she needed to reject it before it became something real, something that could be taken away again. His eyes sharpened, and this time, he stepped closer. Not by much, but enough. Enough that she had to tilt her head slightly to keep looking at him. "It is true," he said. Quiet. Certain. "No," she shook her head slightly. "You said it out there to make a point." "I don't make statements I don't intend to uphold." Her breath faltered. "That's not something you can just decide." A pause. Then, "Yes, it is." The simplicity of it shook her more than anything else, because he believed it, completely, unquestionably, and that made it real, dangerously real. "You don't even know me," she said. This time, something shifted in his gaze, subtle but undeniable. "I know enough." "That's not how this works." "It is now." The tension snapped tighter. Elira's heart raced again, not from fear, but from the way he looked at her, like he had already made a decision and nothing in the world could change it. Before she could respond, the doors opened again, sharp, interrupting, and the tension shattered. "Forgive the intrusion." The voice was smooth, controlled, but laced with something else. Elira turned, and there she was, the second woman,
the one whose eyes burned with jealousy the moment she saw her. She stepped inside slowly, her posture perfect, her gaze immediately locking onto Illyra, then shifting to the king. She continued, "I was told to prepare the hall, but I thought it would be more efficient to speak directly." The king didn't move, didn't step away from Illyra, didn't decrease distance. If anything, he remained exactly where he was, which only made the message clearer. She shouldn't be here. There it was, direct, unfiltered, no more pretending. Illyra felt the shift immediately, the challenge, open now, visible. The king's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. She is exactly where she should be. The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. "With respect, my king." "Careful." The warning came instantly, sharp. The woman held his gaze, bold, but her next words were measured. "You don't know what she brings into this territory." "I do." "You don't," she insisted, taking a step closer. "She's already destabilizing the balance, the bond, the reaction, the way the pack is responding. This isn't normal." Illyra felt every word like a blade, because part of her feared it was true. The woman's gaze snapped back to Illyra. "And you," she added, her tone colder now, "you walk in here like you belong." "That's enough." The king's voice cut through the air like steel. The pressure that followed was immediate, crushing, dominant, unforgiving. The woman went still, but her eyes, they didn't back down. "She doesn't belong here," she said again, quieter now, but stronger. That was the moment everything changed, because this time, Illyra spoke. "Maybe I don't." Silence. Both turned to her. The woman's expression flickered, surprise. The king's? Something else. Sharp, focused. "But I didn't ask for this." Illyra's continued, her voice steadier than she expected. "I didn't ask to be rejected." Her throat tightened slightly. "But I also didn't ask to be chosen." The truth settled in the room, heavy, real. The woman studied her now, differently, not softer, but more attentive. "And yet here you are," she said. Illyra met her gaze fully. "Yes." A pause. Then, "I'm still standing." Silence. Something shifted. Not acceptance, not yet, but something close to respect. Small, fragile, but there. The king's hand tightened slightly at her waist, subtle but deliberate, and when he spoke, his voice carried something new, something deeper. "She doesn't need to belong to this place." A pause. Then, "This place will belong to her." The statement hit harder than the first one, because this time it wasn't said for others, it was said for her. The woman exhaled slowly, then stepped back. Not surrender, not fully, but acknowledgement. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "No," the king replied. "It isn't." And that was a promise, not a threat. The woman turned and left, the doors closing behind her once again. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same, because now the lines...
The silence didn't break immediately after she said it. It deepened, shifted, became something heavier, more intimate. Illyra became suddenly aware of everything again, how close they were, how his hand was still at her waist, how her body hadn't moved away, not even slightly. "I chose you," the words echoed in her mind, over and over, too clear, too certain, too dangerous. Her breath slowed, but her pulse didn't. It only grew louder, stronger, because now there was nothing distracting her, no crowd, no rivals, no noise, just him, and the way he was looking at her. Not like before, not in front of everyone. This was different, more focused, more intense, like he was seeing something no one else could. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said quietly. His brow shifted slightly. Like what? She hesitated. Then, like I already belong to you. A pause, and then, you do. The answer came too fast, too easily. Her breath caught. That's not how this works. His gaze didn't waver. It is for me. The tension snapped tighter. Alira felt it in the way her chest rose and fell, in the way her fingers twitched slightly against his arm, in the way her body wasn't pulling away. It was leaning in, just slightly, barely noticeable, but real. You don't even question it, she said, almost in disbelief. No. Why? A pause. Then, because I've never been wrong about something like this. That should have made her step back, should have made her resist, but instead it pulled her closer, emotionally, mentally, dangerously. Her eyes dropped for a second, to his lips, and that was enough. The shift was immediate. His grip tightened, not forceful, but aware. His head lowered slightly, closing the distance between them, slowly, intentionally, giving her time to move, to stop it, to say no. But she didn't. She should have. She knew she should have. But her body betrayed her, stayed, waited. Her breath became uneven as the space between them disappeared. Every instinct screamed at her, this changes everything. And still she didn't move. His voice came low, barely a whisper. Tell me to stop. She couldn't, didn't want to. Her fingers tightened slightly against him, and that was answer enough. The distance vanished, almost, so close now she could feel his breath, warm, controlled, dangerously steady compared to her own. Her heart pounded violently, and for a second, the entire world disappeared. No past, no future, just this moment, just him. And then it broke. Not gently, not slowly, violently. A force slammed into the outer barriers of the territory, hard enough to shake the walls. The entire hall trembled, the lights flickered, and the moment shattered instantly. The king pulled back, not in hesitation, in reaction. His entire presence changed. Gone was the quiet intensity. Gone was the controlled tension. What remained was power, raw, lethal, focused. What was that? Alira breathed. She didn't need to ask. She felt it too, the shift in the air, the intrusion. Something had entered, something that didn't belong. The king's gaze snapped toward the doors, sharp, deadly. We're under attack. The words dropped like a blade, cold, final. Alira's heart slammed again, but this time not from him, from fear. Real fear, the kind that crawled under your skin. That's not possible, she said quickly. You said this territory. Nothing is untouchable. His voice was already different now, strategic, focused, every trace of distraction gone. Another Udar hit, closer this time, stronger. A low alarm echoed through the halls, not loud, but enough to signal one thing. Danger was already inside. The doors burst open again. The male from before rushed in, urgent, tense. My king. I know. No, he said, shaking his head. You don't. This isn't just a breach. A pause. Then, it's targeted. Silence. Sharp. Deadly. The king's expression darkened. Who? The male hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough to make everything worse. They're not hiding, he said finally. They want to be seen. Alira felt a chill run down her spine. That wasn't strategy. That was a message, a declaration. Another Udar hit, this time followed by a distant crash. Something inside the territory had just fallen. The king turned slightly, just enough to look at her again. But this time his gaze wasn't soft, wasn't intense, wasn't anything from before. It was protective, focused, decisive. Stay here.
No, the answer came instantly, without hesitation, without fear. He studied her for a second, measuring, then a shift, not denial, not refusal, something else. You stay close, he corrected, and that was worse, because it meant one thing. Whatever was coming was serious enough that even he wouldn't leave her behind. Another crash echoed, closer, louder, and then a scream, distant but real. Alira's chest tightened. "This is because of me," she whispered. The king didn't respond immediately, but when he did, his voice was colder than anything she had heard before. Then they made a fatal mistake. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. His power surged again, controlled this time, but far more dangerous, because now it had direction, intent, and whoever was out there had just turned themselves into his enemy. The king stepped forward, and Alira followed, because there was no hesitation left now, no doubt, no distance, only one truth remained. Whatever was coming, they were about to face it together.
The moment they stepped out of the inner hall, chaos was already unfolding. The air burned with tension, smoke drifted between the trees, wolves moved fast, some shifting mid-run, others already in combat stance, their eyes glowing, their bodies tense with adrenaline. This wasn't a breach, it was an invasion. Alira stopped for half a second, her breath catching as the reality hit her fully. This was war, not metaphorical, not emotional, real, brutal, unforgiving, and it was happening because of her. The king didn't slow down, not even slightly. His presence surged outward as they moved, and the effect was immediate. Every wolf in their path stepped aside, not out of fear, out of instinct. Power recognized power, and his was absolute. "Report," he ordered. The male from before appeared instantly at his side. "Multiple entry points," he said quickly. "They broke through the northern barrier first, but now they're inside from at least 3 sides. Casualties? A few injured, no deaths yet." Yet. The word hung heavy. The king's jaw tightened. "Who are they?" Another hesitation, and this time, Alira noticed. They're not marking themselves. No pack symbol, no clear leader. That wasn't strategy. That was something worse. "They want confusion," Alira said quietly. Both men looked at her. "They're not here to win quickly," she continued, her voice steadier now. "They're here to destabilize, to make you react." The king's gaze sharpened, not dismissive, not surprised, evaluating. "And why would they want that?" he asked. Alira swallowed, because now the answer felt obvious. Her hand moved instinctively to her neck, to the mark. "They're testing me." Silence. Sharp. Dangerous. The king didn't deny it, didn't question it, because deep down he already knew. Another explosion of sound tore through the right side of the territory, closer now, too close. A group of wolves burst through the trees ahead of them, 3 of them, fast, aggressive, eyes locked directly onto her. Not him, not the others, her. Alira felt it instantly, the intent, the focus. This wasn't random. The king stepped in front of her without hesitation. The movement was so fast she barely registered it. 1 second she could see them, the next he was between them, and everything changed. "Stay behind me," he said. This time it wasn't a suggestion. The first attacker lunged, fast, precise, deadly. The king didn't move out of the way. He met it, head on.
The impact echoed through the clearing as he caught the wolf mid-air and slammed it into the ground with brutal force. No hesitation, no mercy. The second attacker circled, trying to flank. The king turned slightly, not even looking directly, and struck. A single movement, calculated, efficient. The wolf was thrown back instantly, crashing into a tree hard enough to crack it. Illyra stood frozen for a second, not from fear, from shock. This was different from anything she had ever seen. This wasn't just strength, this was control, absolute, terrifying. The third attacker didn't rush, didn't strike. It stood there, watching, its gaze locked onto her. And then it spoke. "You're the one." The voice was low, distorted, wrong. Illyra's chest tightened. "What?" she whispered. The king stilled slightly, just for a fraction of a second. "You shouldn't exist," the wolf continued. And then everything clicked. This wasn't just an attack. This was a message, a hunt, and she was the target. The king's presence shifted instantly, colder, deadlier. "You chose the wrong territory," he said. The wolf's head tilted slightly, almost amused. "No," it replied, "we chose the right one." And then it smiled before launching forward, straight towards her. But it never reached her. The king moved faster than anything Illyra could track, intercepting mid-air, and this time he didn't hold back. The power that exploded from him wasn't controlled anymore. It was unleashed, raw, dominant, lethal. The ground cracked beneath the force of it. The attacker didn't just fall, it was destroyed. Silence followed, heavy, shocking. The remaining wolves didn't move, didn't attack. They retreated, fast, disappearing back into the trees, not defeated, not broken, strategic. "They're testing limits," the male said, stepping forward again. "They found them," the king replied coldly. Illyra's breathing was uneven now, her heart racing. "They said I shouldn't exist," Illyra whispered. The king turned to Illyra, and the look in his eyes, this time, was different. Not just protective, not just powerful, something darker, more dangerous, more personal. "Then we're going to find out why," he said. A pause, then, "and make them regret ever coming for you." But deep down, Illyra already knew this wasn't over. It had just begun, and whatever she was, whatever made her different, was powerful enough to start a war.
The silence after the attack didn't bring relief. It brought questions. Too many, too fast, too dangerous. Illyra stood exactly where she was, her body still tense, her heart refusing to slow down. The words echoed in her mind over and over again. "You shouldn't exist." Her fingers pressed lightly against the mark on her neck. It was still warm, still reacting, still alive. The king watched her closely. Not the battlefield, not the retreating enemies. Her. "You felt it," he said. It wasn't a question. Illyra nodded slowly. "Yes." A pause. Then, "It wasn't just fear." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." She hesitated, because she didn't fully understand it herself, but she felt it, deep, instinctive. "It was like," she started, searching for the words, "like they knew me." Silence, sharp. The male beside them shifted uneasily. "That's not possible," he said quickly. But the king didn't respond to him, didn't even look at him. His focus remained entirely on her. "Continue." Illyra swallowed.
They weren't just attacking, she said. They were looking for me. The truth settled between them, heavy, unavoidable. The king exhaled slowly, not surprised, not confused, confirmed. Clear the area, he ordered without looking away from her. The male nodded immediately. Everyone back to defensive positions. Double the northern line. No one moves alone. Within seconds, the clearing began to empty. Fast, efficient, disciplined. Until it was just the two of them. Again. But this time, everything felt different. The tension wasn't just between them, it was around them, inside the situation, inside her. "You're hiding something," the king said, direct. Alira blinked. "What?" "You felt something you're not saying." Her breath caught slightly. "I told you everything." "No." The word cut through her instantly. "You told me what you think I need to hear." His gaze intensified. "But not what you're afraid to admit." Silence. He was right. And that was the problem. Her fingers tightened slightly. "I don't understand it." "Then say it anyway." A pause. Then, "They didn't feel like strangers." The words came out quietly, but once they were out, they couldn't be taken back. "They felt familiar." The air shifted. The king went still, completely still. "That's not possible," he said, but this time his voice wasn't dismissive, it was calculating. Alira shook her head slightly. "I know how it sounds." "No," he said slowly. "It sounds like something we haven't considered yet." Her heart skipped. "What does that mean?" A long pause, and for the first time, the king looked concerned, not weak, not unsure, but alert, focused on something deeper. "Tell me about your past," he asked. The question hit harder than she expected. "There's nothing to tell." "That's not an answer." "It is when there's nothing there," she replied. His eyes narrowed. "Everyone has something." Alira looked away for a second. Just a second, but it was enough. "I don't remember much," she admitted. Silence. Heavy. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean exactly that. Before the pack that raised me, it's blank." The words felt strange, too real, too exposed. "I always thought it didn't matter. I survived. I had a place. That was enough." "But now it isn't," he said. "No." Because now everything pointed back to that missing piece. The attack, the words, the way they looked at her, like something they had been searching for. "You think it's connected," she said. "I know it is." His certainty hit hard, fast, unavoidable. Alira's chest tightened slightly. "What if I'm the problem?" she whispered. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Raw, honest, real. The king stepped closer, immediately. "No," he said, firm, final. "You are the reason." Her breath caught. "That's not better." "It is," he replied. A pause. Then, "Because it means you're not weak." His gaze locked onto hers. "It means you're important." The words settled deep. Important. Not broken, not rejected, not unwanted. Important. Her chest tightened again, but this time not from pain, from something else, something unfamiliar, something stronger. "But important things get targeted," she said quietly. "Yes." No hesitation, no comfort, just truth. "And I won't let anything touch you." The promise wasn't soft, it wasn't romantic, it was dangerous, absolute. The kind of promise that came with consequences, the kind that started wars. And then it happened again. The mark burned, suddenly, violently, stronger than before. Alira's body tensed instantly. The connection surged, not outward, inward, pulling, forcing, showing. Images flashed in her mind, too fast, too sharp. Fire, darkness, eyes watching her, chains, and then a voice, faint, distant. You were never meant to survive. She staggered. The king caught her instantly. Alira. His voice was sharp now, focused. What did you see? Her breathing was uneven, her heart racing wildly. I don't know, she gasped. Yes, you do. His grip tightened slightly. Tell me. Her eyes lifted to his, fear flashing through them. They weren't trying to kill me. A pause. Then, they were trying to take me back. Silence. Cold. Dangerous. The truth landed hard, because that meant one thing. She hadn't escaped something random. She had been taken, hidden, protected, or stolen, and now whoever lost her wanted her back. The king's entire presence darkened. You don't belong to them. The words weren't just reassurance, they were a warning, a claim, a declaration of war. Alira's fingers tightened slightly against him. But what if I do? She whispered. That was the moment everything shifted again, because this time his answer wasn't calm, wasn't controlled. It was raw, possessive, unyielding. Then they'll have to come through me. And from the look in his eyes, that wasn't a possibility. It was a promise.
The moment the words left her lips, everything changed. They were trying to take me back. Silence followed. Not empty, not calm, dangerous. Because now this wasn't just an attack, it was a retrieval. The king didn't move immediately, but Alira felt it. The shift, the way his entire presence darkened, focused, sharp, lethal. Then we don't wait for them to return, he said. Cold, decisive. We find them first. Before Alira could respond, a scream tore through the territory, closer than before, too close, followed by a crash, and then another. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. The king turned instantly. They've breached the inner line. That wasn't supposed to happen. Not here, not this deep. Alira felt fear spike in her chest again. They're getting closer to me, she said. Yes. No denial, no false comfort, just truth. And it means one thing. His gaze locked onto hers. They know exactly where you are. The implication hit hard, fast. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was precision. The doors to the inner hall burst open again, but this time it wasn't an ally. It was one of theirs, injured, bleeding, barely standing. They're inside, he shouted. They knew the layout. They knew exactly where to go. He collapsed before finishing. Alira's breath caught. That's not possible, she whispered. But deep down, she already knew. It was. The king's expression hardened instantly. Someone told them. The words dropped like a blade. Sharp. Final. A traitor. Inside. Alira's stomach tightened. Who would? I don't care who. I care that they die for it. The temperature in the room dropped. His power surged again. But this time, it wasn't controlled. Not fully. It pressed outward. Heavy. Violent. The walls themselves seemed to react. Alira felt it too. Stronger than before. Not just power, rage, and it was building fast. Another crash echoed, right outside, and then the doors shattered. Wood splintered, stone cracked, and they came through. 5 of them. Not hiding anymore, not cautious, direct, focused, on her. Every single one. The king stepped forward, in front of her. Again, always. You don't get another step, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried something far worse. Authority. The attackers didn't stop, didn't hesitate. They moved. Fast. All at once. The first lunged straight for him. The second, for her. But it never reached. The king moved like something unleashed. No restraint. No hesitation. He intercepted both. At once. The impact exploded through the room. One attacker hit the ground hard enough to crack stone. The other was thrown across the hall. The remaining 3 circled. But they weren't afraid. That was the problem. They knew what they were facing, and they came anyway. Bring her, one of them said. The same distorted voice from before. She belongs to us. The king stilled. Just for a second. And then, something snapped. No. The word wasn't spoken. It was felt. The power that erupted from him wasn't contained anymore. It wasn't controlled. It was dominance. Pure. Absolute. Crushing. Every attacker froze for a fraction of a second, and that was enough. He moved. Faster than sight. Brutal. Precise. Unstoppable. One down. Then another. Then blood. Silence. Breathing. Heavy. Irregular. The last attacker remained standing. Barely. But smiling. That was wrong. You still don't understand, it said. The king didn't stop walking towards it. Then explain. The wolf laughed, low, broken. She wasn't meant to live free. Alira's chest tightened. What does that mean? She demanded. The wolf's eyes snapped to her, and for the first time, there was no distortion, no mask, just truth. You weren't abandoned, it said. You were taken. Silence. Everything stopped. Alira's breath caught in her throat. What? You were a weapon, it continued. Something that shouldn't exist outside control. Her mind spun. No, that's not. You were hidden, it cut in. Erased, buried in a weak pack so no one would ever find you. The words hit like a storm. Too fast. Too much. Too real. Alira staggered back slightly. No, but it made sense. The missing past. The blank memories. The way they were hunting her. Not killing. Retrieving. The king stepped forward again. Slow. Deadly. You're done talking. The wolf smiled wider. You think you can stop this? A pause. Then, they're already coming. The words settled like poison. And then, it moved. Fast. Straight for Alira. The king reacted instantly, intercepting, and this time, ending it. Completely. Silence fell. Heavy. Final. The room was still, except for one thing. Alira. Her breathing uneven. Her mind racing. Her world shattering. I was taken? She whispered. The king turned to her, and for the first time, he didn't look controlled. He looked furious. Not at her, at the truth, at what had been done to her, at what she had been turned into. You made her a target, he said.
The silence after the last body fell wasn't peace. It was anticipation, heavy, unnatural, like the world itself was holding its breath. Elira stood in the center of it all, her chest rising and falling unevenly, her mind still struggling to process everything she had just heard. You were taken. You were a weapon. The words echoed, louder now, clearer, more dangerous. Her past wasn't empty. It had been erased, and now it was coming back, not as memory, as consequence. The king didn't move away from her, not even for a second. His presence surrounded her completely, protective, dominant, unyielding. "They're coming," she said quietly. It wasn't fear, not anymore. It was certainty. Yes, his answer matched hers, calm, ready, no hesitation. The ground trembled again, stronger this time, not from impact, from presence. Something was approaching, something far more powerful than the ones before. Elira felt it in her bones, in her blood, in the mark that suddenly burned. Not like before, not unstable, not chaotic, controlled, awake. She gasped softly, her body tensing as something inside her shifted. Not pain, recognition. The king noticed instantly. His hand moved to her arm. Elira. Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time, something in them had changed. Not just fear, not just confusion, something deeper, something older. "I remember," she whispered. The words barely made sound, but they hit like thunder. The king stilled. "What?" Her breathing slowed, not steady, focused. "They didn't just create me," she said. Her voice changed, subtly, stronger. "I tried to control me." The truth settled heavily. "And did they?" he asked. A pause. Then, "No." The answer came without hesitation, without doubt, and that's when everything shifted. The mark flared, bright, brighter than it ever had before. Light spread across her skin, not soft, not gentle, powerful, alive. The ground beneath her feet reacted, cracking slightly. The air thickened, charged, and for the first time, it wasn't his power dominating the space, it was hers. The king stepped back, just slightly, not in fear, in awareness, because now he felt it too. She wasn't just important, she wasn't just rare, she was something else entirely, something that had never been meant to exist freely, a force. The outer walls exploded, not from impact, from pressure. And then they arrived. Not 5, not 10, dozens, moving as one, eyes glowing, bodies ready. But they weren't focused on him, not anymore, only her. And then one stepped forward, different, stronger, the leader. Its gaze locked onto Elira, and it smiled. "There you are." The voice was clear, undistorted, familiar, too familiar. Elira's breath caught. "You," she whispered, not because she knew him, but because something inside her recognized him. "We've been looking for you," he said calmly. "You don't belong here." The king stepped forward instantly. "You don't get another word." But the man didn't even look at him. "You were never meant to choose," he continued, his voice steady. "You were meant to obey." Elira's chest tightened. "No." The word came out stronger now, clearer. "I decide what I am." The man's smile didn't fade. "You don't understand what you are yet." "Then explain," she demanded. A pause. "Then you're the balance." Silence. Heavy. Confusing. Dangerous. "What does that mean?" she demanded. "It means," he said slowly, "you weren't made to belong to a pack." Another step forward.
You were made to control them. The words hit like a shockwave. Illyra froze. The king's entire presence darkened. No one controls what's mine. This time, the man laughed. You still think this is about ownership? A pause. Then, she was never yours. The tension snapped. The king moved. Instantly, power exploding outward, ready to destroy everything in front of him. But Illyra moved first. Her hand shot out, stopping him. The contact sent a shock through both of them. Wait. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It carried something else. Authority. Real. Unquestionable. The king froze, not because he was forced to, because he chose to listen. That alone changed everything. Illyra stepped forward alone, facing them, facing the truth, facing whatever she was meant to be. I'm not going back, she said. The leader tilted his head slightly. You don't have a choice. She smiled, and this time it wasn't fragile, it wasn't uncertain, it was powerful. Yes, she said, I do. The mark burned, but this time it didn't hurt, it answered. Power surged through her body, not wild, not uncontrolled, perfect, balanced. Every wolf in the clearing reacted instantly, not to him, to her. They felt it, they knew it, instinctively. She wasn't prey, she wasn't something to capture, she was something else, something above them, something they couldn't control anymore. The leader's expression shifted, for the first time, uncertain. That's not possible. It is now. Her voice didn't rise, it didn't need to, because the power behind it spoke louder than anything else. The king watched her, and something in his gaze changed. Not possession, not control, respect, real, deep, dangerous, because now he understood. He hadn't just chosen her, he had chosen something that could change everything. Illyra took one final step forward, the air around her shifting, responding, bending. I'm not going back, she said. The leader tilted his head slightly. You don't have a choice. She smiled, and this time it wasn't fragile, it wasn't uncertain, it was powerful. Yes, she said, I do. The mark burned, but this time it didn't hurt, it answered. Power surged through her body, not wild, not uncontrolled, perfect, balanced. Every wolf in the clearing reacted instantly, not to him, to her. They felt it, they knew it, instinctively. She wasn't prey, she wasn't something to capture, she was something else, something above them, something they couldn't control anymore. The leader's expression shifted, for the first time, uncertain. That's not possible. It is now. Her voice didn't rise, it didn't need to, because the power behind it spoke louder than anything else. The king watched her, and something in his gaze changed. Not possession, not control, respect, real, deep, dangerous, because now he understood. He hadn't just chosen her, he had chosen something that could change everything. Illyra took one final step forward, the air around her shifting, responding, bending. I'm not